Today, I'm excited to be joined here in London by Chimezie Emewulu, founder and CEO of Seamfix. Seamfix is a leading provider of digital and biometric identification services and recently raised its first institutional round of capital. So today we're going to talk about the journey. Chimezie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Antonio. Thanks for having me. It's very great to be here.
So I want to start maybe by asking, how hard was it? How long did it take?
It took quite a while. It took us close to a year, right, to package the documentation, basically just re-emphasize the same things we've been doing, do the research to clarify the market, clarify where we're going to, how we're going to get there, narrow down from all the products that we had to the few ones that we're going to scale with. So that exercise took us like a year. Maybe 6 months, but then the next 6 months was reaching out to investors, engaging them, talking to them, trying to get feedback. And I'm happy we did it with great things.
Maybe you could talk for a second about how was Seamfix before, where did the need of capital arise, and how did you approach that process to demonstrate, hey, we need this capital to grow, we need a partner to help us do that?
Okay, so Seamfix started in 2007. Started in our sitting room. Myself and my co-founder Chimezie started in our sitting room. Started with less than, as of then, we kind of like bootstrapped, and we bootstrapped for about 16 years. And what we saw in the process was that every year, all the monies we make, we reinvest into the company, and that pace of growth was a bit too slow. And we were in the market, and so many people came into the market and out-executed us. They will come in, they will see the problems, we see the problems before they see them, but because of funding, we would not be able to execute it the way they would execute it when they have a lot of funds.
Right.
So we saw so many businesses come into our space and out-execute us in space where we were the pioneers.
Right.
So after a while, we saw some few infrastructural opportunities, and we realized if we don't do something about this, some other persons are going to actually take those opportunities,
yes,
and we'll probably just play catch up again.
Yes.
So we analyzed it, looked at, if we were to just focus on what we were doing, we were going to just continue growing. At that pace we were growing, there was not going to be an issue. Excuse me. But then what happened was that we saw that for us, we really needed to grow, and we really needed to win some major infrastructural kind of opportunities. And then we analyzed the landscape, the African landscape, and we saw that there's a very big gap, especially in core identity and access management. There's a very big gap. So we decided, okay, so for us to do this and do it properly, let's not do it in a mediocre way. Let's go raise external funding to support that process.
Right.
So it's not like we were cash broke, for example.
Yeah.
We were bootstrapping, we were used to it, but we needed that injection to be able to help us.
Yes, to do it properly.
Yes, to do it properly. So for us, it was at that point we were doing so many different things. We had almost 7 or so different product lines that we've implemented for different organizations, doing just in different directions. But all of them were still about identity, but different versions of identity.
Yes.
So I remember reaching out to you that, hey, this is what we're trying to do. And one of the first things you did tell me then was, we need to make sense of all this and bring the story together and bring everything together and declare how all of them connect. Because if we're going to sit in front of somebody to tell the person to invest, we need to first of all be clear, this is exactly what we're doing, this is how they all connect, and this is the direction we're going. From foundation, we were clear identities here, right? We were clear on the fundamentals. But bringing all that together was actually the real work that needed to be done before we engaged with any investor. But we did that not necessarily just to even engage investors, because by the time we finished that, we also realized maybe we really didn't need to.
Actually, I remember that.
Yes. We had that gap where we were like, now that we're clear what we really need to do, should we maybe reach out to investors? Should we maybe take debt funding from banks and actually get this stuff sorted out?
So I want to actually ask you something about here. When you raise capital from a equity investor, you have to give away some of your shares, some of your cap table, right? Which for a founder is very painful, right? This is a company you built for 10, 15 years, and suddenly somebody that hasn't done anything until that point takes 10, 20, 30% of the company. I know that was a pain point for you and Chimezie and the other founder. So how did you approach that?
The biggest pain point we needed to overcome before raising fund was to come to peace, to make peace with that reality that we're going to give a portion of this business away to somebody else.
Yes.
Because all along we've self-funded it, we've put in all the sweat, we've not been taking out money from the business, we've been investing everything, just basically trying to grow the business, trying to get it to start turning out profits the way we expect it to. So we've been putting everything in. And now we got to a point where we realized we needed to give out.
Yes.
So that was the first hurdle that we needed to cross. And the moment we crossed it, everything became pretty simple. You see, the environment we started our business from, we saw that many people just raise funding for the sake of raising funding.
Yes.
So you don't just need funding, you just raise it so that you can have an easy life. So you have a lot of businesses that were failing.
Yes.
Because they raise funding, not for the business, but for the status of having raised funding.
Yeah.
We are not interested.
Yeah.
Our interest was to raise funding for specific purposes, for growth.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think there's also a theme about aligning your vision and direction, which is to grow and become this, holistic provider of identity and access management solutions, with the interest of an investor that puts money and risks the capital, right? And at that point, yes, you give away some of the cap table, but you have the same goal. And
yes.
If you win, you win. If you lose, they also lose, right?
Yes, and the truth is, the interest for us is for the investor to actually win, because he's giving something. He's actually bringing out something
Yes.
to invest in a venture. So for me, I believe fundamentally that anybody that puts something, whether you're putting sweat or you're putting cash, you deserve to win. So in our own case, I want to believe our investors are going to win mega, because this is a business that we've managed to grow. We have track record of being very prudent, track record of investing in the right things, and at least having been able to grow the business from zero to where it is today without external help. Now we have external help.
Yes.
Only God knows how big it can grow. So I want to believe that anybody that has invested in the business, they're going to actually cash out. Something out there is really, we need everybody out there that is thinking of raising funds to actually ask themselves why they really are raising funds. So
should I do that?
Yes, just be certain that you're not raising funds just so that you can live large. You're actually raising funds so that the business will succeed and you will return money to the shareholders, the people that actually gave you money.
Yeah, in many cases, maybe you live less large because you suddenly have a partner that is looking, at you and what you do and approving some expenses, having some sort of control. So you have an auditor type of partner. So I want to ask you about this. We help you run a very targeted process with investors. We contacted very few, but the responses were quite overwhelming. A lot of people actually replied with interest, which I was amazed by. But when did you know that Alethea Capital was the right partner for Seamfix?
Okay, well, for me, we reached out to a lot of these guys, and the responses, like you said, were very overwhelming.
Yes.
I mean, so many of them were indicating interest. Along the way, when we started engaging with Alethea, and they were more particular about the fundamentals of the business. They were asking the right questions. Mm-hmm. We started feeling this level of chemistry. And so far, like yesterday I had a board meeting with them, and they were just asking the right kind of questions that are fundamental. There's no rancor, everybody's excited about the business. They're suggesting opportunities, suggesting partnerships. They're just basically partnering with us to grow, right?
Yes.
So in that whole fundraise process, they were the people that asked the most critical and the most important set of questions. Questions about growth, questions about forecast, questions about the fundamentals of the business. Many others were not really so keen on those questions. They were more interested in the fundraising itself. These other guys
valuation.
But these other guys were not yet talking about valuation. They were more enthused about
long-term vision.
Exactly. Right. Where are you going with this business? How do you see it? How does it play out? They were fascinated by the execution so far, and we could see that there was a lot of chemistry.
Part of the process.
Yes, but right off the bat, Alethea was very clear. Okay, so this is what we do. This is what we have available. This is what we're going to be. The ticket size. would like to do it this way. They were very clear.
Yeah.
Very
Very
patient,
very methodical. Yes,
Yeah.
I thought the same from the very first meeting. Let's go a little bit into a delicate territory, valuation. At a certain point, I remember the day you received the term sheet from Aletheia, which basically outlined the terms that they have in mind. And it's non-committal, meaning they can withdraw it, but it sets the stage for what kind of valuation and what kind of deal and what kind of terms. You get it, the team gets it. I think we talked the same day or the next day, I can't remember. What were your thoughts when you saw that valuation?
I was like, forget it, I'm not doing it. I was honestly not doing. Like, I was like, I'm done. I can't continue with this engagement with them. At that point, I was totally done with
You were
them.
thrown off.
Yeah, it was like all the investment you've made over the years counted for nothing, based on the value they placed on the company, based on their calculation. And for us, we fundamentally believe that we've built something very beautiful, and the value is supposed to be more. So the response we gave to them was, hey, you know what? So forget about it.
We're out.
We are out. We don't think we can arrive at your valuation, and we think it will be a waste of both our time, your time, our time, for us to start negotiating on this valuation. So it doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
that was the response.
Is there a point to be made about how a founder feels about its company, its baby, right? And the potential it can achieve, right? Knowing you're sitting on this Ferrari that hasn't quite yet delivered its full potential, versus the standpoint of a investor, VC or fund that is thinking about revenue, growth rate, EBITDA, total addressable market, and metrics like that. Is there a disconnect? Did you see their side as well, or?
Actually, I saw their side. I can also understand from an investor's perspective that, hey, you know what, I'm looking at this business, I'm looking at what exists, and I'm looking at maybe the fact that this is your first round, you've not done, forget the fact that you've been there for 15, 16 years. I'm looking at the fact that you've not done this before, at this scale you're about to do it. And at this point, yes, it looks like potential, but the truth is, it's not exactly potential. Just demonstrable results.
Yeah. There's more than that. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm interested. You say, under these terms, I'm out. I'm sorry. We can't do this. How did you turn it around? Because this investor ultimately did result into a partnership, right? You took money from them and you're working with them. So how did you turn it around from that initial term sheet?
Okay, this is not a trick question. The truth is, we got the valuation that they gave us. We looked at it. We felt we are miles apart. We are poles. In fact, we are the North Pole, they are the South Pole. So we are not converging at any point. That's the way we read it. But there's no point.
Okay.
So all we basically did was to say, you know what? Don't bother. Just forget about it. And then they looked at it and say, hey, it's not about forget about it. We've invested.
Let's talk.
Yes, let's talk. We've invested some months discussing with you.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just go to waste. Let's tell us what you're thinking. And we're like, we're not thinking anything really. We just don't feel like you've done the right homework on us. We don't think the value you've placed on us reflects the reality. Okay, so they were like, tell us what value reflects the reality. And we were like, see, just analyze it properly. Just look at it again. So we refused to give them any value.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we were willing to just continue looking at other term sheets or other people that were going to give us more term sheets, right? So at that point, that was the kind of thinking. We're just going to continue.
Yeah, should we go back
Continue,
to the
yes.
other investors? Yeah.
So that was the thinking at that point. But then they analyzed it, and they did some bit of recalculation,
Yeah.
and they came up with something that was easier to chew. Not that it was ideal for us, it was far
From what you had
it
in
was
mind.
very far from what we had in mind, but it was easier to get our head around it.
Yes. One thing that I remember is that initially they were probably looking at the historical performance only, and then in
So
the
we're discounting
revised
the future.
term sheet they
Yes.
started using the projected as well, right? The current year and the future year. And I think that in a growth trend like you were, that helped. getting something more workable. Okay, so at that point you sign the term sheet, right? Which essentially means that you get into a exclusivity period that gives the investor 2-3 months to do the due diligence.
Yes.
And then this process of the due diligence starts. What do you remember about that? Because I have memories of that.
I remember the process as being very, very, very
Thorough.
yeah, it was thorough, but it was a bit draining.
Yeah, a bit.
It was a bit draining, you know.
Yes.
So
and not just for you, also for Lillian, for Frank, for everybody in the team.
For everybody, it was a bit draining. Like you wake up in the morning. So for me, what I wanted to do was wake up every day and go grow the business.
Yes.
Wake up every day, figure out, sit with the sales marketing guys, have you spoken to this, who are we talking to?
Yeah.
You know, like I want to wake up every day and do the real actual work.
Yeah.
But every day I wake up, I start answering questions.
Yeah.
On
checklists and questionnaires.
So it wasn't something I looked forward to,
yeah.
you know, but it was something that needed to be done. And what helped was that before then, we had started a process of compliance. Mm-hmm. So it helped. Maybe 5 years before we even thought of fundraising, we sat down and asked ourselves, what can kill our company? And we listed all the things that can kill us.
Okay.
And one of the thing that was topmost on the list is a compliance fine. So if we get a compliance fine, similar to the one that MTN in Nigeria got, MTN got a $5.2 billion fine. If we get a compliance fine that was bigger than us, it was going to kill the
That can kill us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, what do we do to avoid getting any form of compliance issue so that we don't die? Because that's the quickest way to die. Mm-hmm. Get compliance fine. So on that basis, we started analyzing and we realized, okay, you know what, we need to do some certifications to put our process in order. We realized our business being focused on identity, we did a lot with sensitive data. So we did ISO 27001, ISO 27701, excuse me, and the other ISO 8000 and something on quality management. So we did these 3 ISOs. So 27001 is on information security, 27701 is on privacy and information management. So we did that to strengthen our internal workflow and internal processes. We started enforcing a lot more governance processes across different things. Then after we finished putting all that process in place, we started having disaster recovery plans in place, not just for our technical products, but for our business process. So we started simulating scenarios. What if there were to be a disaster? Then nobody could think of COVID being a disaster. So, but what if there was to be a disaster? How are we going to recover? What will we do as a business? We didn't, before then we didn't have any process in place, but then we thought of a process. We said, okay, if there were to be a war, for example, everybody would be at home, would work like this.
Example.
Yes, would work like this from home. So we simulated all those scenarios. And then so we put it in place, ran it. We never needed to activate the disaster scenario until 2020, when COVID hit. The moment COVID hit, we went back, picked up all those disasters.
And you were ready?
We were very ready.
Okay.
So we immediately switched to working from home, the process. In fact, we grew faster during COVID because we had all the processes we needed in place.
You were ready.
Yes.
So there's a lot in this. Let me try to unpack it. You started a preparation for your own internal systems and processes, which then helped during the due diligence.
Exactly.
It helped for your business, but it helped answering questions from investors and their advisors.
Yes.
This ties into a bigger theme about preparing, right? Preparation, which is a lot of what obviously we do. How did preparing helped in this process, right?
It's actually kind of like it was afterwards I later understood that our due diligence was actually fast. Understand some other companies, you come to them, they don't have a lot of the information.
Yeah.
And then most of the time you're like, okay, give me what you have. And then in the process you're trying to develop most of the relevant policies that needs to be in place, most of the process flows and stuff. But in our own case, we practically had everything ready. We had all most of the documentations. So it helped from a perspective that it shortened the timeline that it would have taken. So, and because we also had repository for our documentation where we keep most of the documents with different access controls and stuff. it was easy for us to just bring up all these things. And then it also helps that we do business with big organizations that also force us to be compliant.
Yeah.
Big organizations that, like MTN, for example. MTN is I think it's a $20 billion revenue company. So if you were to work with that kind of company, and you are servicing a critical part of their business, which is in customer acquisition,
you need to be compliant,
identity management of their customers and their agents, you need to have a lot of processes in place, and they are very serious about it. So they send auditors to audit your process and be certain that everything is working well, because they don't want to be exposed through you.
Yes.
They want to ensure that you are doing what you need to do, so they don't wake up and government is fining them because they didn't have maintained proper oversight on you. So it also helped that we were working with such big organizations, you know.
Right.
So MTN, Globacom, Airtel, Nine Mobile, work with a lot of these big telcos and banks. So because we work with them, we had to also put proper process of compliance in place.
Okay, great. So, and I want to wrap soon, but I think one thing that everybody is maybe wondering is, many people try to raise capital, right? And I think particularly as an African headquartered company, you were one of the few that managed to do that, right? You talked about processes, we talked about preparation. What else do you think you brought to the table that these investors realize this is the horse that we're going to bet on? This is a company that we can help grow. Not to put you on the spot, but is there a unique identity, a unique problem that Seamfix was addressing that was then explained very well to these investors?
I think we brought a lot to the table. I think first we brought a deep understanding of the market to the table, especially across Africa. We brought a deep understanding of how big the market is, a deep understanding of what needs to be done, the levers to be pulled for that market to be unlocked. We brought our grit and our capability to stay dogged and stay focused on that, on the opportunity till we figured it out or till we delivered on it. I think we brought a lot to the table really, and the investors saw all that, and they were willing to join forces with us to co-invest in creating this big opportunity. So for me, number one, we had clarity of the market. I know we spent a lot of time brainstorming with you guys in Growthing to be clear that this is the market, this is the size, this is the way to size it up. We debated a lot of the numbers, some of the numbers that we thought made sense from an external consigliere perspective. By the way, it's important if anybody is trying to raise funds, let them get an external consigliere, somebody that would tell them the way it is, because as a founder, you can be up there in the cloud with your head, thinking these numbers make sense, and it takes somebody who is not in the details of that's your fantasy world to bust that bubble and show you the reality and tell you, hey, what you are thinking versus what is out there in reality is a bit different. And another thing why I think they were also very excited to invest is that we are not interested in taking money off from the investment. Even though we've run the company for a while, we're interested in growing the business. The money is going to come from us creating
from an exit down the line.
Exactly. So if I need money, I'm going to wait for that exit. I'm going to wait for that exit event.
And everybody wins.
And everybody wins. So
I want to ask you something else. Sorry, I know we're going a little bit long, but I know you've been working now on a much bigger opportunity that is related to the core of Seamfix business. And it ties into identity and access management, not necessarily for just telcos and banking, but for any large organization in Africa and beyond that needs to verify the identity and the access of employees, contractors, sales reps, right? And I don't think it's a case that this big opportunity comes, a year after the investment, right? And so I wonder, how did that investment and raising capital and working with Althea foster for you and the team, the development of this big transformative project that you're working on?
So we have this product map that shows all the pillars of our product, shows the base platform that the product sits on, and shows something on top that connects all the products, which is the IAM layer. So we have multiple products, and in each product we manage identity. In each product, that's what we used to do. So from our roadmap, we needed to invest in creating a layer that abstracts user identity from each product and manages it centrally. So when we now finally got the funding, one of the first things we did was to put that process, that layer in place, because that has been a missing layer all along. But when we wanted to do that, we decided to build it from ground up to become externalizable, such that instead of it being a feature in each of the products, because what we used to do was build all those things as features inside the product. So it makes each of the products to be very heavy on the user identity. So you embed it inside the user identity module of each product. So it's a lot of features, a lot of robust, it's a whole lot. So what we did was to isolate that to a central solution, which is the IAM layer, and each product is now integrating to it. Because we've isolated it and the products are integrating to it, every other person can integrate to it.
Yes.
So in doing that, we've kind of like unlocked a huge market that ordinarily before, because of our lack of funding, we focus on just what the customer is asking for. But what we're going to do before was, customers ask for this, we just build only that.
Respond to the inquiries.
Yes. But now, with the bit of that extra capacity to now innovate, we could do it differently. All along we know this how to do it, but because you are bootstrapping, you need to solve the next problem and collect money from the customer, and hopefully in time T be able to now do the solution. But now, because we're able to get this bit of bandwidth to do the right thing, we could now build that framework the way it ought to be built.
This is
and
great.
Doing that, we've unlocked a huge market.
So, to put it in different words, this partnership with investors unlocked a bigger opportunity, or maybe enabled you and the team to look at a bigger opportunity that now seems within reach. It wasn't maybe within reach or executable before. Now you have the confidence, capital, and support to actually venture into
exactly.
this big market.
So the ideas have always been there.
Yeah.
We've seen it every day. We'll be like, wow, we need to do this, but how do you do it? So you finish discussing it, you focus on the current opportunity that will pay the next month's bill. But with the bandwidth of having some months of salaries, sorted out, from a perspective of you are trying to do expansion, so there are some costs you need to bear. So you are no longer in the pressure point of always needing to figure out where the funding is coming from.
Yeah.
You now have the capacity to actually think. And at that point, it's like, okay, before we raise funding, one of the key questions we ask ourselves is, assuming we have $1 billion sitting in our account, what will we do?
What do we do?
Because you start spending the money mentally before it comes physically. So we are clear that, okay, if we had this amount of money, this is what we will do, this is what we will do. And in doing that, the money came along the line.
1 million.
Not 1 billion.
Sorry, less.
It came in trickles. It's coming actually.
It's coming.
What we're saying is that it doesn't come at once. It comes in 4.5 million first. Maybe later it's coming in another tranche. But it's coming. And it's for us to also demonstrate the result we ought to demonstrate based on what has been given to us right now. If we can show the type of, that the market we projected is valid and is real, and where we are today is authentic, we're demonstrating growth, then it makes more sense for somebody to say, I trust that you'll get to this market, take some more money.
Some more, yeah. And many investors, many even entrepreneurs think that a company will actually grow better if it doesn't have all of the capital available at once, because it makes you maybe more responsible about how you spend it, right?
Oh, yes.
And getting to a milestone to earn the next amount of capital. So I think this is also what they have in mind, and I'm sure there will be more to come. So let me summarize a little bit the themes that we touched today. We talked extensively about preparing for an investment round. We talked about the duration and how hard this process was. We talked about the term sheet and reaction to evaluation, the disalignment or misalignment sometimes between what we think our company is worth, what others think the company is worth. How do we bridge that gap, right? How do we negotiate? How do we stay focused on the deal without losing patience or losing momentum? We talked about the due diligence and how extensive that process was. And we also talked about what opportunities this investment partnership enabled. So I'm going to ask you one last question. To any founders out there that are thinking about raising, that are trying to raise capital, what is one or two pieces of advice that you would give them?
Well, make up your mind that the piece of advice I would really give is make up your mind, number one, that the investors you're going to be getting ought to be partners to you. They are not competition to you. They are not people you quarrel with. They are people that are coming into your business to help and support your business to grow. I've kind of like noticed that the attitude most people have towards investment and investors is that of, let me not be close to them. Like,
I don't trust them.
Yes, me versus them kind of thing. But no, in my case, what I've seen is that these guys are actually like partners. They want the same thing you want. They want to grow. They have funds that they need to make returns on, and you have a business that you also need to make returns to invest to shareholders.
That's a great point.
So see them
They're
as
entrepreneurs just like you in a way.
Exactly. See them as your partners. See them as people that you collaborate with to build wealth. So that's number one. Also, make up your mind that as you invite them, that you're going to find the right kind of person that you have chemistry with.
Yeah.
I think that chemistry is really very important.
Yes.
So you don't find uncomfortable bedfellows, if I put it like that. You find people that are, people that you can actually make good progress.
That you like to work with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People that make you feel like you want to go to work and you want to actually put in your best. So do that. Another thing is also be very honest about even the reality. You may have an overvalued sense of what, but the reality is always going to be the reality. They may not place all that value that you think, or you may not actually worth what you thought you are worth. So, but make peace with that reality and actually make do it. Some people may hear this and feel like, oh, well, that guy doesn't know how to negotiate. I mean, you can bulldoze your way through, but that's not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just be as realistic as possible.
Yes.
You may not be that special.
You guys are very special, and I think you've been very authentic and genuine in the conversation with these investors and us. So thanks for sharing this wisdom. If anybody has questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Chimezie. Thank you for sharing all this insights into the journey raising capital, and thank you for coming out here.
Thank you, Antonio. Thanks for having me. And I wish Brenton God the best.
Let's go to lunch.
Yes, please.